Hello Internet, so nice to see you. Occasionally as musicians we need to memorize our pieces. We can sight read them, we can memorize them, we can improvise them, we can do a number of things, but occasionally you are stuck in having to memorize a long and complex piece. How do you do that? Well, a student asked me exactly that, and in my answer I will show you a very unconventional but unreasonably effective strategy to learn long pieces. I am showing this strategy for the piece that the student asked me about, which is a Baroque piece, okay? It's a Bach piece. But simply because that's what he's asking, okay? But the same idea will work for pretty much any other style. So brace yourself, and here we go.
Can you make it easier to memorize stuff?
No.
it's like too hard to do. No, but really, like I've heard the strategy. You know, you can play it very slowly. You can repeat it a lot. Work in small chunks. Build your chunks up. Is there anything else I should be doing besides that I can do to maybe help make it go faster, or alternatively make it feel less frustrating while I'm doing it? Well, like I was trying to learn Bach's Spore,
Okay.
and I've got like the first half of it, and I'm starting to do the second half, and I've been working on it since I've been here, and I'm like kind of shaky on two measures.
There are a few strategies. Now, Baroque musician would memorize the bass line first. Okay, so a pure Baroque musician will just try to go through the whole piece and looking at the bass line and seeing, okay, when we are in this key, when we are in the other key, what kind of patterns I do in the bass line, like 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 5, whatever. And that's how a Baroque musician would think. The rest, it's the stuff you put on top, and it's easy at that point. But that's quite a strange strategy for us because we're not being trained that way. Okay, so what I'm telling you, why I'm telling you that? Because a Baroque piece is completely foreign to you, because there are no chords the way you think of chords. They're thinking about something that you're not been trained to think about, maybe yet, maybe not. But so the solution there is literally learn note by note, which is not the best. So what I will start, I will identify where are the cadences, okay? Where there is a cadential movement, like a 5-1, maybe in what key it is.
Yep.
Okay, and you hear it in the piece. It's every time you go like that sound.
Yeah.
And then they go in another key and do exactly the same, no? And the same thing there. And then they go to another key and they do whatever. And then they go. And then there's another one there, and so on and so forth. So essentially 5-1 or 2-5-1 or 4-5-1 or something else 5-1, okay? And that will start from those, even if there are gaps in between.
Okay.
Okay? So like, where is the first 1-4-5-1 or 1-2-5-1, or it's typically the first few bars. Okay, by the way. Okay, but I will just mark it on the score. That's a 1, that's a 5-1, that's another 5-1, that's another 5-1, that's another 5-1. You're going to find them consistently throughout the piece. It's just kind of the defining characteristic of the style. By the way, that will work for jazz too. So I will start from there. Okay. Maybe I will learn just the 5-1. So the first 5-1 will be probably somewhere like here. The next 5-1 is in a different key, and it's here. The next 5-1 is in a different key, and it's here. And I will just learn those.
Okay.
Okay, because this way I can go through the whole piece more or less, and I can already establish where this stuff works on the guitar. And then the thing I need to match is not all the notes, but the lowest note and the highest note. The notes in between, you can fit them up however you want.
Right.
It's kind of understood. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of. You're saying that's like the big structural stuff. Memorize the big structural stuff first.
Yes, yes.
Maybe separate the bass line from the melody separately.
Well, the thing is that it's a cadence is a cadence is a cadence. Bach can do cadence in all the possible keys, but it's still the same 5-1 movement. The first thing you're going to do is that you're going to learn, essentially, a lot of different ways of playing 5-1 on the guitar. But first of all, that's useful in general. Okay, I mean, even if that's the only Baroque piece you learn, you learn something that you can actually use somewhere else because it's going to happen everywhere, anywhere. Okay, so you start building some vocabulary that will work for that style or other styles, rather than just learning a piece and then forgetting it, right? And since you're marking this before, and again, you can go by ear, you can go by looking at the score, but you just mark all of those. Okay, and you concentrate just on that, you're going to find it's the same thing. So it's easy to remember because it's the same thing, but it's in different keys, somewhere else on the fretboard. Sometimes the top note of the one is the 1, sometimes the top note of the 1 is the 3, and the top note of the 1 is the 5, rarely. Okay, so but you start having this kind of idea and see how the whole thing goes.
Right.
Okay, and you also know what keys is moving. So you're kind of learning a lot of useful stuff because you have the position on the guitar fretboard. When does he end on the 1? When does he end on the 3? When he ends on an inversion instead? What keys he is going through and in what order? Okay, so you learn a lot about the piece. You learn a lot about how music works in general, and you are learning the piece. And once you have these, and you can play those cadences one after another, even if not in time or anything. Plum, 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 or with their embellishment. Then you start, okay, let's fill the first gap. How does it go from this cadence to this other cadence? What's the advantage of that? One, it's much easier to fill a gap because it has a beginning and an end. 2 bars may not make any sense.
Right.
But from one cadence to another, it makes musical sense. Okay? Maybe the chunk is longer, but you know it's going to end there.
Right.
Okay? Second, when you are performing it, if you make a mistake, well, you know what the next cadence is, okay? Just make some noise, get to that cadence, and you can keep going. Okay? You have some milestones that are not going to change, okay? Because also psychologically, lots of people start learning from the first bar. They learn the first bar really well. That's also the easiest bar, okay, usually. And then when they come out with like, where does it go here? I don't remember, I'm lost, it's a big wall of fog when you get in the second half of the piece. Yeah. But if you learn the cadences before, you already put all those milestones, okay, you can just jump from one to another. Now, if you learn a lot of Baroque pieces, eventually you can learn you can just feel anything as long as it goes from that cadence to that cadence and that it still works, okay? So you can actually, one thing I recommend people who study composition is take only the cadences, then fill them in a different way. And you have a new piece patterned on the original Bach, which is not Bach, okay? But you have a new piece. You can do this with any style, using different thing other than a cadence, but it's the same idea, okay? But this way you go immediately through the piece. You learn a lot, you get a vocabulary so the next time it's easier, and then you just need to fill the gaps.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I've noticed before, like you said, sort of by style, something I'm more familiar with, I already know maybe the vocabulary of it, and then I'm thinking about it that way instead of like, how am I playing these notes? So maybe it's a symptom that I need to think about, like understanding what's happening compositionally a little bit, in different ways to help make it easier to...
Yeah, you don't want to break it by bar, because bar doesn't mean anything, it's just a length of time. You want to break it by phrase, which is what I'm doing. Technically speaking, from one cadence to another, you have a phrase, even if it's not always what you think a phrase is, because in modern music it's different, okay? But in jargon, it's a phrase. This phrase takes you from this key to the other key, or this situation to the other situation, essentially. Finally, you're going to see that often, especially Bach, will fill those gaps in the same way. So at this point, you spot way more patterns. It's the same thing in a different key. It's the same key in a different key. Maybe you have to work it out, but it works. Okay, so start from there and see if it works better for your mindset, essentially. Because what I see from you is that, like, bar by bar, it's not your thing. Now, if you learn it bar by bar, by the way, I would recommend another thing. Learn it from the last bar.
Oh, go backwards.
Yes, because again, the first bar is the easy one, and everybody repeats them the most time. And toward the end, you get the virtuoso fast part or whatever.
Yeah.
And people repeat this the least amount of time. So actually, and also, so the piece feels harder and less
Yeah.
familiar the more you get into the piece. Do the exact opposite. Learn the last bar, then the last 2 bar, then the last 3 bar, and so on and so forth. So the more you go into the piece, the easier it is, the more familiar it is, and it feels like you're just rolling down a hill until the end of the piece.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I hate that. It's like
Yeah.
it's like I just want. It was going great, and now it's getting
yeah, and
harder.
now you're
Why'd
like,
they do that?
what is it doing at the end? Okay. Right, so that's the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, try both ways. But I mean, I don't think bar by bar either way in any direction is for you. You are more like, you want to see the structure. So let's go and
Yeah.
see the structure.
Cool.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.